Hello students, welcome back to Head and Neck Spotters. So this is the third part, that is the last part on Head and Neck Spotters. So we shall begin today's session. So in today's session we would cover about thyroid gland, larynx, means the structures present within the larynx, oral cavity, structures of oral cavity, nasopharynx, nasal cavity. So these are the things which we would cover. So starting with the thyroid gland, the pinned structure here, this one is the thyroid gland. I think you can see it clearly. The outline of thyroid gland I am showing. So this is the thyroid gland, one side of the thyroid. So identify it is a thyroid lobe of thyroid gland and its relations are often asked. Anterior relations means the superficial relations which are covering the thyroid gland. So it is sternothyroid, sternohyoid, then superior belly of omohyoid and sternocleidomastoid. So these are the muscles covering the thyroid gland anteriorly. Posterolateral relations, this is the posterior lateral. You can see the common carotid artery here, very beautifully seen here. So posterolaterally it is related to carotid sheath and its contents. So carotid sheath contents are common carotid artery, along with it internal jugular vein and vagus nerve. So they are the posterolateral relations. Medial relations or posteromedial relations we can remember as two tubes, two nerves and two muscles. Two tubes are trachea and esophagus, and two muscles are cricothyroid muscle and inferior constrictor of pharynx, and two nerves are recurrent laryngeal nerve and external laryngeal nerve. So these are the relations of medial relations of thyroid gland. Here it is mentioned its development. So development, thyroid gland develops from thyroid diverticulum, which is the lower end of thyroglossal duct, which arises from the second pharyngeal arch, floor of second pharyngeal arch. And not only thyroid diverticulum, the parafollicular cells of thyroid gland develops from ultimobranchial body. That is the caudal pharyngeal complex gives rise to parafollicular cells of thyroid gland. And in recent advances, they say that neural crust cells are responsible for the growth of parafollicular cells in the thyroid gland. So this is about the development. Blood supply, thyroid gland gets its arterial supply by superior and inferior thyroid arteries. Superior thyroid is a branch of external carotid artery, and inferior thyroid artery is a branch of thyrocervical trunk, which is a branch of subclavian artery. And also sometimes in few individuals there is an extra artery called arteria thyroidea ima. So that is an extra inconstant artery. And venous drainage, superior thyroid vein, middle thyroid vein, inferior thyroid vein, and fourth vein of Kocher. Superior and middle thyroid veins usually drains into internal jugular vein, and inferior thyroid vein drains into subclavian vein. And vein of Kocher, if it is present, it drains into subclavian or it drains into brachiocephalic trunk. So that is about the blood supply. Clinical importance, we can tell about goiter, we can tell about Graves' disease, cretinism. So these are some of the clinical aspects associated with the thyroid gland. And why do the swelling move with the deglutition? The thyroid gland has got a true and false capsule. The false capsule is mainly made of pretracheal fascia. So the same pretracheal fascia gets modified and connects the thyroid gland to the trachea. So during deglutition, during swallowing, the thyroid gland moves along with the movement of the trachea. So that is called suspensory ligament of thyroid as well. This is the thyroid gland which we already discussed just now, and here is the cartilage, whitish color cartilage, that is the thyroid cartilage, which is a part of larynx cartilage. Its histological structure, it is made up of hyaline cartilage, hyaline variety of cartilage, and it's any two muscles of attachments are normally asked. So sternothyroid is one muscle and thyrohyoid, and we can also say the inferior constrictor of pharynx also attaches to the thyroid cartilage. So these are the few muscles attached to thyroid. So here is the anterior view of larynx along with the other deep structures in the neck. So this is the thyroid cartilage, you can see very beautifully here. And here is the hyoid bone, this is hyoid bone. And below the hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage, this is thyrohyoid membrane. Thyrohyoid membrane. And below this one is the cricoid, this is the cricoid cartilage. This is the cricoid cartilage. And you can see the muscle connecting the cricoid cartilage to the thyroid. This is the cricothyroid muscle. So this is the cricoid cartilage which continues as trachea. This is trachea. It continues as trachea. So this is cricoid cartilage. And starting with the present topic, this is cricoid cartilage. So here is the cricoid cartilage. Cricoid cartilage is also made up of hyaline cartilage histologically, and the two muscles attached are cricothyroid muscle, which is externally seen, and posterior cricoarytenoid muscle, which is the only abductor of vocal cords. And lateral cricoarytenoid muscles are also there, which are the muscles of larynx attached to the cricoid cartilage. Cricopharyngeus is also a part of inferior constrictor attaches to the cricoid cartilage. So these are the few muscles attached to the cricoid. So apart from cricoid, we can see many more structures here. I will just label it for your understanding. So this here is the hyoid bone. So this is the hyoid bone, and this is thyrohyoid membrane. We can see the thyroid cartilage and cricoid, cricothyroid muscle and trachea. And we can see the lobes of thyroid. This is the thyroid gland. Each lobe is seen. Isthmus is cut here. So these are the each lobes of thyroid. And this is the external carotid artery which is giving rise to branches. So this is the superior thyroid artery which goes to the thyroid gland from the external carotid artery. And these are the superior laryngeal nerves and vessels. And we can see some lymph nodes as well, and this is the submandibular salivary gland. The next cartilage in the larynx is one more unpaired and large cartilage is the epiglottis. So this is one half of the epiglottis what you are seeing. So this is the tongue, and here is the epiglottis, and which forms like a lid over the laryngeal inlet. This is the laryngeal inlet. So epiglottis histologically made up of elastic cartilage, and the two muscles are aryepiglotticus muscle, which is a laryngeal muscle attaches to, and the other muscle is the thyroepiglottic muscle. So aryepiglotticus muscle and thyroepiglotticus muscle are the two muscles attached to the epiglottis. And we can see the root of the tongue also attaches to the epiglottis. Next is pattern number 48. Here the pinned structure is the vestibular fold. This is the interior of larynx. So here is the sagittal section of larynx and even the sagittal section of tongue you can see. And this is the epiglottis which we already discussed just before. And this fold is the vestibular fold. And below one more fold is there, that is the vocal fold. The depression what you see between these two vestibular and the vocal folds is the sinus of larynx. So this is the vestibular fold. So the structure deep to the vestibular fold is vestibular ligament. It is present deep to vestibular fold, and mention its nerve supply till the level of vocal cords. Vocal cords are considered as watershed line in the larynx. So till the level of vocal cords, the sensory supply is by internal laryngeal nerve. Below the level of vocal cords, it is by recurrent laryngeal nerve. So vestibular folds are above to the vocal folds. So they are supplied by internal laryngeal nerve, sensory supply. And the space below it is the sinus of larynx or saccule of larynx. Here the pinned structure is the vocal fold. You can see here vocal fold is pinned here, and below it you can see nice gap, that is the sinus of larynx, and above to it is the vestibular fold, and you can see sagittally sectioned tongue here. Okay, and this is the mandible which is cut, and we can appreciate the trachea which is below the cricoid. Trachea is there. This is the cut part of thyroid cartilage, and here is the cricoid cartilage, posterior part of cricoid cartilage, and here this is the trachea. So vocal folds, the subquestions are: mention the structures present deep to it. Vocal ligament is present and vocalis is present deep to it. It is the upper end of conus elasticus, and the space above it is the sinus of larynx. Clinical importance: the gap between the two vocal folds is called as rima glottidis or glottis, and the gap between the two vestibular folds is rima vestibuli. So this vocal folds, the only abductor of vocal folds are posterior cricoarytenoid. If these muscles are paralyzed, there won't be any abduction. So the person will have breathlessness. So that is one of the clinical aspect you can note down for. There are many more clinical aspects associated with vocal cords. You can make note of it. Here is the sinus of larynx. Here you can see the pinned gap is the sinus of larynx between the vocal folds and the vestibular fold it is. The above one is the vestibular and below one is the vocal folds. And boundaries: above it is bounded by the vestibular fold, below it is bounded by the vocal folds. And sinus of larynx contains the mucus rich glands which are forming the oil can of larynx. It is called oil can of vocal cords or larynx. It keeps the vocal cords moist always. Here is the piriform fossa. Lateral to the epiglottis, the gap between the pharyngeal wall, that is the thyrohyoid membrane, and the epiglottis. This gap is called as the piriform fossa or piriform recess. So it is bounded medially by the epiglottis and aryepiglottic fold, and laterally it is bounded by thyrohyoid membrane. And this nerve which is related to it is the internal laryngeal nerve, which is present in the floor of the piriform fossa. Then internal laryngeal nerve is along with the superior laryngeal vessels. So internal laryngeal nerve is present in the floor of piriform fossa. Clinical importance: any foreign body if gets stuck while eating, especially like fish bone or anything, it may go and stuck in the piriform fossa, causing irritation of internal laryngeal nerve. So the person, if the internal laryngeal nerve is damaged, it will be like the person won't be able to feel the sense above the level of vocal cords. So the spotter number 52 here is the tonsillar fossa. So how you identify it is, above it is palate, soft palate, and this is the dorsum of the tongue. Until here it is anterior 2/3 of the tongue, and from here it is the posterior 1/3 of the tongue. And here we can see the cut part of epiglottis. So this is the sagittal section, cut part of epiglottis. So the pinned area is the tonsillar fossa, where palatine tonsil is located there. And boundaries of it, it is formed anteriorly by palatoglossal arch, which contains palatoglossus muscle, and posteriorly palatopharyngeal arch, which contains palatopharyngeus muscle. And base of the triangle is formed by the posterior 1/3 of the tongue. You can see here posterior 1/3, and apex, where the upper superiorly it is bounded by the soft palate, that is the inferior surface of soft palate. And structure related to it means which forms the floor or bed of the tonsil. Palatine tonsil are pharyngobasilar fascia and palatopharyngeus partly, and constrictors of pharynx, superior constrictor of pharynx, and it is also formed by buccopharyngeal fascia and little part of stylopharyngeus muscle. And if we dig still more, we can see the glossopharyngeal nerve, and still more laterally the tonsillar branch of facial artery, and some palatine branches too. So these are the structures related to the tonsillar fossa. And clinical importance: tonsillitis. So inflammation of tonsil is called as palatine tonsil is called as tonsillitis. Here palatine tonsil is pinned, the same area, the question is differed. Previously identify the pinned area was asked. Area means tonsillar fossa. Pinned structure means palatine tonsil. That's how you have to make out the difference in the question. So here structures forming its bed, just now I discussed the same structures form its bed. Clinical importance, again you can mention about tonsillitis, and there are many more clinical aspects, you can make a note of it. And here this is the gap between the epiglottis and the posterior part of the tongue. So this is called as vallicula. It is called as vallicula. It is the depression between the epiglottis and the tongue, like this. So this is bounded anteriorly by posterior 1/3 of the tongue. Posteriorly it is bounded by the epiglottis. Medially there is a connection between the epiglottis and the tongue, which is called as median glossoepiglottic fold, and laterally similarly there is a connection between the epiglottis and tongue, which is called lateral glossoepiglottic fold. So these are the boundaries of vallicula. And its nerve supply, posterior most part of the tongue is supplied by vagus. Here is the dorsum of the tongue. This is the dorsum of the tongue. So there are several questions which can be asked as the sub-question for dorsum of the tongue. Mention its development. Anterior 2/3 of the tongue develops from lingual swellings, tuberculum impar, that is the mucosal development. Posterior 1/3 is from the cranial part of hypobronchial eminence. And sensory supply to this tongue, anterior 2/3 it is supplied by the lingual nerve, general sensations. Special sensations, that is the taste, by cauda tympani nerve. Posterior 1/3 glossopharyngeal nerve, both general and special sensations. Muscles present in it, you can tell genioglossus, hyoglossus, extrinsic, intrinsic muscles, all the muscles you can mention. And motor supply, hypoglossal nerve is the supplies all the muscles except palatoglossus. And lymphatic drainage, anterior 2/3 drains into submandibular lymph nodes and submental lymph nodes. Posterior 1/3 of the tongue drains into retropharyngeal group of lymph nodes. Blood supply, lingual artery, that is the chief artery of the tongue. And clinical importance, you can write about aglossia, absence of tongue, or inflammation of tongue is called glossitis. So there are many more clinical aspects which you can search and learn by your own. So here is the vestibule. Vestibule is the gap between the cheek and the teeth, is called as the vestibule, where we usually chew our food. So the probed space is the vestibule, and the structures opening into it is the parotid duct opens into the vestibule. So the next comes here is the soft palate. So the pinned structure is the soft palate, which is the continuation of hard palate. You can see hard palate continues as soft palate, and it is purely made up of muscles. Mention the muscles present in it is asked here. So there are 5 muscles: tensor veli palatine, levator veli palatine, palatoglossus, palatopharyngeus, and musculus ovale. And mention its development. It is a part of hard palate, so it is the continuation of hard palate. So developmentally it develops along with the palate. So palate develops from the palatine shelves of maxilla, posterior part of the palate, especially from the palatine shelves of maxilla, when they join together to form. So posterior unossified part of the palate will form the soft palate, and rest of it gets ossified to form the hard palate. So we can say it as posterior unossified part of palatine shelves of maxilla forms the soft palate. Mention its sensory supply. Sensory supply is by glossopharyngeal nerve, and motor supply is by vagus and spinal accessory, that is the cranial part of spinal accessory, which together form pharyngeal plexus. They supply the muscles of soft palate except tensor veli palatine, which are supplied by the mandibular, which is supplied by the mandibular. So tensor valley palatine alone is supplied by the mandibular nerve. Rest all the muscles are supplied by the pharyngeal plexus. So that was about the soft palate. Next, above the soft palate, this is the nasopharynx. Here is the nasal cavity and here is the hard palate. And we can see here, this is the nasopharynx. And the opening in the nasopharynx is the auditory tube, which is formed by tubal opening of the auditory tube. And the cavities it is connected, we can see this side is the nasopharynx, the other side is the middle ear. So it connects the middle ear or tympanic cavity with the nasopharynx. And development, auditory tube develops from the first pharyngeal pouch. It develops from the first pharyngeal pouch from tubotympanic recess. That is the proximal part of first pharyngeal pouch. Then identify the pinned structure. Here is the stylopharyngeus muscle, which is, you already saw the auditory tube. Just above the auditory tube, you can see a nice bulging elevation, which is called as salpingopharyngeal fold. And the muscle deep to it is salpingopharyngeus muscle. Salpingopharyngeus muscle is present deep to salpingopharyngeal fold. It is a longitudinally running muscle in the pharynx and it is supplied by the pharyngeal plexus which are formed from the cranial part of accessory nerve, or that is the spinal accessory nerve. So that is about the nerve supply. And the next here it is the spotter number 61. So we are entering into the nasal cavity. So few more spotters to finish up head and neck. So 61 here, you can see here it is probed in the inferior meatus. This is the inferior concha. This is the middle concha. And you can see this is the hard palate. So you can see the probe is just above the hard palate and below the inferior concha, which means the inferior meatus of the nose. So inferior meatus, the structures opening into it is only one structure, that is the nasolacrimal duct. Nasolacrimal duct is the continuation of lacrimal sac which opens into the inferior meatus of nose. Next is the middle meatus of nose, which is between the inferior and the middle concha. So this is the middle concha or middle turbinate and this is the inferior turbinate and here is the middle meatus. So middle meatus, the structures opening to it are the paranasal air sinuses. So frontal air sinus will open there. Frontal air sinus, maxillary air sinus and anterior and middle ethmoidal air sinuses. These are the structures opening into the middle meatus of nose. Here is the superior meatus. Superior meatus is between the superior and the middle concha. You can see very beautifully here all the three turbinates or three conchae, superior, middle and the inferior. The superior meatus, actually the sphenoethmoidal recess opens into the superior meatus here and also the posterior ethmoidal air sinuses opens into the superior meatus of nose. So the nasal septum, the questions asked here are the components forming it. So the major part of the nasal septum is formed by the vomer and perpendicular plate of ethmoid, which forms the bony part of nasal septum. And apart from that, some septal cartilages are also present in the nasal septum. And blood supply of the nasal septum, it is supplied by anterior ethmoidal artery, sphenopalatine artery and superior labial branches from the facial artery. And in the anterior inferior part, these arteries form plexus which are called as Kissel-Bax plexus, which is the site of epitaxis or nasal bleeding. Nerve supply, anteriorly, anterior ethmoidal nerves, which are the branches of internasal nerves, posteriorly nasopalatine nerves, and uppermost part of the nasal septum is innervated by the olfactory nerve for smell sensation. So you can see the frontal sinus and the pinned structure or probed space is the frontal sinus. It opens into the middle meatus, to be specific, hiatus semilunaris of anterior part of hiatus semilunaris of middle meatus. Blood supply, it is supplied by supraorbital artery and superior ophthalmic artery too. And nerve supply is supraorbital nerve, which is a terminal, which are the branches of frontal nerve, supraorbital. And clinical significance of it is may cause sinusitis, frontal sinusitis. So this completes some of the important spotters of head and neck. I hope it would be helpful for you all to revise before exams. And I thank you for patient listening till the end of the session. Bye. Take care.